Colours, the very original album, was at a special time in my life. I mean, it was early 90s, and you know what I've realised is that you don't need the best studio in the world. You don't need all the latest plugins and everything else. The most important thing in a studio is up here, you know. And I think that that's my best instrument is the mind and the concept and the vision for what you want to make. And but also what's good about when you first make music is it's coming from a very innocent place, you know. It's very honest and it's very organic, and that's what the Colours album was about. The original Colours album, it was a bedroom studio. I had analog equipment. I had an Atari STE monitor, notator. It was a giant dongle used plugged into the side of the computer, which has obviously later become Logic, as my DAW. And then I had an Alan Heath mixing desk, which I love the analog EQs, and that's what's great about this studio World Heartbeat here we're in today. A few compressors, DAT machine, CD player, a record player, Fender Rhodes, a vocoder, a clavinet. And yeah, it sounds like a lot of stuff, but this was stuff that I'd earned and bought from working in my own store at Camden Lock. I used to sell tea and coffee and walk up and down Camden Lock selling Rasta posters and records, and then busking in the evening, and then go to buy a bit of equipment and add it on to my bedroom studio. And it's a great time. There's a couple of people that have worked on the reboots for the new version of the album that also used to come down to that bedroom studio near Watford, and pay me £25 for the day to help engineer tracks and work on tracks together. So that was where not only did I make Colours, but I also made the hip hop album Chaos, which is, you know, when I look back and think how massive both albums were and how they sounded. They both sounded massive, and but yet it was all done in a bedroom studio. I mean, not all of the recording process, but the majority of it, apart from recording the artists on there. We recorded the live instruments at my house. You know, the session musicians would come over, and we would record the saxophones and trumpets and flutes and everything in a bedroom with a very basic setup. And we even went to New York, to like the Hit Factory at the time, which was probably like 10-15 grand a day back in those days, to mix down tracks with LL Cool J, De La Soul, Redman, and then the mix downs there, I preferred the ones that I did in my bedroom in Watford, you know, King's Langley to be precise. And it just goes to show, and that's because I knew what I wanted it to sound like, and if you hand it over to somebody, they give their interpretation of it. But that was the basic setup to make the Colours album. I mean, you know, nowadays we've got people can go on YouTube and look at things, and I didn't do any of that. I mean, I just sort of bought a microphone and plugged it in and experimented. And I think that's what's the most important thing I've always found. You know, my wife was saying the other day, you know, a couple of new tunes we've been doing recently, she's hitting a bowl in the kitchen and then sampling it. And, you know, we use native instruments like Contact as a sampler. It's great, you know what I mean? And you put your own sound in and you manipulate it. And that sort of thing I've always done. I've always done it organically, whether it's using an Akai, you know, outboard sampler or a VST plugin. And we'd bring over artists and just plug in a microphone and bung it through the compressor. And in fact, the whole mixing desk was going through one compressor. Everything was just going into this one compressor when we do a mix down. But session musicians would either come over, and I'm very meticulous when someone's recording. I don't just say, do you want to just blow anything? You know, I've got all the notation worked out specifically. And then, but with Tracy Thorn, who's sung on the original track, Tree Knows Everything from Everything But the Girl, we'd sent her the song to record in her own studio with Ben Watt, and then she delivered the vocal. But that was a song again that I'd written. I think I'd laid down a guide vocal myself and then sent it to her. When I first started making drum and bass, jungle, my first influences probably musically were, you know, Atlantis music, Bookham, a couple of tracks that really pulled me in with those two tracks, where I could hear just cool. They were samples, but I could hear that you could put in just cool chords and cool notes, and over amens, and it just felt cool. That turned me on, you know, that sound, and that was probably had an influence on a direction for tracks like Circles, to a degree, but so did also my keyboard, my, you know, latest Kurzweil, or you know, keyboard that I just bought to play things. Because when I get a new instrument, there's nothing better than hearing something that makes you want to play something. And that's why a really good piano, any decent, you know, proper pianist, you can just press one note, and if it sounds that, you know, that lovely, warm, inspiring sound, you're going to want to play, and it's going to inspire you to write. And then to completely flip the script upside down, going out to the venues at the time, like Speed, you know, Fabio and Grooverider, and then Bookham, sorry, and then Blue Note, Metalheads, which was a game changer. And I remember coming away from there, and that was a venue and a time and period where all the artists would be there together listening. So you'd stand around, there'd be Dillinger, Ed Rush and Optical, Goldie Groove. Everyone would be in that small environment hearing tunes for the very first time. And so Metropolis was inspired by just standing in Blue Note, and I just wanted to create that atmosphere. And I went home after a night there, and I'm glad I didn't DJ at the time, because otherwise I wouldn't have made Brand New Funk the way I did, or Metropolis with a minute string intro with nothing to mix in. I would have been conscious of that, and then probably tried to do something different. So I'm glad I didn't, because the DJing definitely changes your mind when you're making music, and I like to keep that out of the studio and make it authentically, and put the audience last and put the music first and what I want to make. So, you know, there was a combination between a few early tracks I had from Good Looking and the cool jazzy stuff that was around at the time, and there was some really cool stuff back then. And then also, you know, going to some of the venues, and then going back, and then I wanted to go back next week, and I did, and I went back after making Metropolis, and I just, because of Groove had been, you know, playing Circles and stuff, and really, you know, championing it, and really supported me massively. And I think I handed him a dub plate at the side of the deck at Blue Note, and he just took it out the thing and then put it on. And Metropolis, and I just was like, I saw this big hand come over, loads of rings on it, and just stop the record. And that was like, okay, stamp of approval, you know. And it was a great moment, and it was a great place to hear it. You know, that changed a lot of things in drum and bass, Blue Note, that night. Exactly the same in 2025 as it was when I first started making music. I'm just a little kid excited by, you know, when people say, how you doing? I don't like to say I'm all right. You know, every day is like Christmas when it comes to making music, you know. And in fact, I find myself going back to how I did make music then more. Where I suffered the most making music is when it turned into just a laptop, and it was being convinced to park everything. You can get a VST that sounds like Fender Rhodes. You can get this that sounds like that. I'm like, really? And then you try it out for a bit, and it takes a while before you realise it doesn't sound like that. And so I find myself going back to the way that I made, and getting on a mixing desk, you know. And it was when I suffered the most creatively was when, because I realised that having the instruments to touch and feel and hold and play inspired me to do completely different things. Because I used to just set up a tape machine running, whatever it is, we can be computer now, whatever, running, and get my instruments, plug in wah-wah pedals, have a drum machine there with one mic on it, a drum kit with one mic on it, and just go around and play for an hour with a you know, a clavinet on top of a Fender Rhodes, wah-wah pedal, vocoder thing there, and just playing things for ages, and then jumping on the drums and things. And then I'd come back afterwards and listen to it all and just think that sounds great, that bit, this, and then start to compile a thing and then replay it all, rather than getting the mouse, clicking a thing in it, and then moving these blocks around and going, no, that doesn't quite sound right, play it again, and then moving the block around. I'm just, give me the fucking keyboard and I'll play it. I realised that a lot of my early first releases and music as Adam F were not available online, and it'd been a long time since the physical product was in people's hands, something that they could hold and you know, own themselves. And myself as well. I tried to, you know, I didn't have any copies of my own music. You tend to give everything away. Everybody always asks for a copy. And before you know it, you know, 10 years down the line, you haven't got a copy of any of your own music. And I went online and I had to pay £90 for my own album to get a copy of it. And it, you know, just made me realise how good it was to have that physical copy. And I wanted that back. I wanted that physical copy myself. And a combination of things, you know, I also wanted the rights back to my music. And nowadays, with the ever-changing music industry, it's great for artists to control their own rights and have control of artistically what they want to do with their music and how they want to present it. So that started the you know, the mind ticking to think, how are we going to put this together and get the team back together, which was our management, the original musicians we worked with on the album, and painstakingly path forward, which was definitely a labour of love, to working on the Colours project. Well, the first steps to working on Colours Revisited was to look at what assets we had, which wasn't very many, you know, to hand. It was, you know, about putting together, setting a plan to put together how we're going to remake all this music, and still give people the, you know, without taking it away from the original sound of the music. And so it was a combination of finding bags and bags of floppy disks, zip disks, machines that would actually load them up, samplers, outboard equipment, the original instruments, you know, clavinet, Fender Rhodes, a couple of Fender Rhodes, vocoders, and then of course the artists themselves, like MC Conrad, Tracy Thorn, who sung on Everything But the Girl. But that song ended up being sung by my now wife, Kirsty Hawkshaw from Opus 3. But we basically went to recondition all of these instruments, which was, you know, a lot harder than I originally anticipated, because we'd take it to a specialist to get reconditioned and realised they'd be phoning us up saying, where have you kept these? Like in the garden for 20 years, because they'd be covered in mould, you know, they'd be like this really old. So it's quite a hard process getting them back to a standard that I was happy with, but we managed to do it. And so, you know, the album probably took longer to physically and remake and play than it did the first time round. I realised when I listened to some of the takes that I was just talking about back then, when I'd record stuff for an hour and a half, I was like, fuck, is that me playing? And I realised that, like, you know, people say, you've got to play the piano every day, you know, to keep up. And I just think, it's like playing pool. You can 10 years later, you go, I thought I used to be really good, now I'm shit. Do you know what I mean? And that's what happens the same with playing singing. And my manager's always saying, you've got to do it every day, a few hours a day. You've got to lube it up and warm it up, and like being a footballer, you know, otherwise you're going to tear your hamstring, you know. It's like, but it's funny, because there were people that were saying to me over the last year, you know, oh, we want to just put circles into our set and a live thing and stuff, and do you mind? And I'm like, well, yeah, I kind of do, yeah, but like, you know, what are you thinking? And like, can you show me what keyboards did you use for this sound and that sound? I'm like, well, I'm not fucking telling you. And it's like, not a spoiler, but I'm like, you know, but anyway, so what keyboards did you, how do you exactly play that riff? I've been trying to play it, and I'm like, so I was thinking, well, it's easy, do you know what I mean? But then I'll listen to it, and yeah, you're right. I've gone back to certain things back then, and you think it's simpler than it is, and that is nice for myself to challenge myself and hear some things because a lot of the best stuff sounds really simple, and it is simple, but it's a perfect arrangement of notes and harmonics that suddenly create magic, and it can be really simple. I mean, like the track I did with Redman, the Smash Something. I mean, it's a massive orchestra, but you go past the intro and the middle sections with a big orchestra and choir, the basis of the track, I mean, it really is just drum and bass and a few sound effects, but it's the combination of notes that makes something really special, and that's what makes a hook, you know what I mean? With circles and things like that, you've got a bass hook, you've got a vocal hook, and then you've got a keyboard kind of top line thing, and if they're the right combination of harmonics, then you're on something that's going to touch people. I don't like giving advice because I think that everybody has to find their own way, really, in life, and so my advice may be just applicable to myself, but being authentic, and putting the audience last, as a producer, is straight, and that's really, I mean, that's a quote from Rick Rubin about putting the audience last, but I've always reminded myself in the studio that when I think about the tunes, I don't like blowing your own trumpet, what tunes you like and stuff, but people say, if there's a tune that you really like that you made, I love Smash Something, I love Circles, I love Metropolis. I mean, I really like them as if they weren't mine, and I've detached myself from them. And it's because I can just hear, I'm like, what the fuck is that? I still think that to myself, when I hear certain things, and that's what I want when I'm in the studio. I don't care if you have to say what do you think of this tune, then there's obviously something missing still within that tune that you're not happy about. Because if you just think this is fucking great, do you like this? Don't you? It's fucking great. And that's how music should be made. It should just be all for the love of you and the thing. I mean, so the advice I would just say to someone making music is just stick to what your dream. Otherwise, you're just a sculpture that can make the Eiffel Tower, but it's fit in the toilets at McDonald's. You know what I mean? It's like, it was great, but your vision was to do that, and that's just be authentic. Choosing people to work on the reboots was pretty easy, really, because it was who am I a fan of, and who do I know was a fan of the original tracks and genuinely cared, about the songs and the music. And I've been working with Conrad for the last 2-3 years, MC Conrad, who was known for a multitude of incredible music, and in the early days was alongside Bookham with Logical Progressions, but unfortunately back then, for whatever reason, I don't know, he couldn't come on the road with us to do any of the shows, because he had an exclusive thing with Bookham and Good Looking Records. But so it was great for the first time in 30 years to actually go out and perform F Jam live, and we had big hopes and big visions to expand that as the Colours Live show unfolded over these next coming years. It wasn't meant to be, but Conrad, also sat down with us when we were going through the music, and we just recorded his vocal. So you should would love to do a mix of Music of My Mind or this and that, Makoto, Marky, or this. And I was like, I love those guys, you know what I mean? But and because there's a lot of people that you love, you just don't cross paths. I mean, you have done at certain times. And then Nookie, who did, worked on the original Colours album, and as a remix for one of the tracks. So it's pretty straightforward to just at least who I know I'd love and to work on the track. And so we just contacted the people that I knew were fan of the music, loved it genuinely, and it may be some of the people that helped, what got them into drum and bass, some of those first tracks. So that was quite a straightforward process. Well, Colours Revisited has just dropped. The album is available physically, which I recommend anybody out there to pick up a copy of the physical copy, and the CD as well. It's not just another format. The CD, what we've done on there is put together all the best live performances from performing the tracks on Colours on the road, and a few other ones that would never have come out, no one would have heard. So it's a really nice experience to hear a live show, and how we sound, the F Jams and Adam F, how we presented the tracks together, so now that's out there. I'd say, yeah, we've got the CD, we've got the vinyl, and it's also a great way for me when I make albums. It's honestly, it's about the whole experience. And during this month, we're going to play the music in pitch black in like the Bristol Planetarium and in Riverside Studios in Hammersmith, where people can actually listen to the music in pitch black and headphones, and it's a whole different experience when you actually don't just quickly swipe or move away from it. You know, you immerse yourself within the artist's vision, and so we've done that just because it's, you know, it's nice to invite people down and to listen to music in that environment. But the reason why I encourage people to buy a physical copy of it is because you hear it in its entirety. I arrange the tracks so they all join together and they all merge together throughout the playing experience of it. Moving forwards, we'll be taking this on the road bit by bit over the next couple of years, just expanding from, you know, a small sort of outfit and just slowly growing to do live shows with it, as well. Simultaneously, we'll be working on Return to Colours, which is an album with my wife Kirsty Hawkshaw from Opus 3, who's a great writer, great singer, and a really good producer. I mean, it's important to highlight females, you know what I mean, not only my wife, but how much they do in this industry, how good they are at producing, as well as they're not just singers, or, you know, this is a very male dominated industry, and it's time to shine the light on what women provide to this scene, and their talent. So I'll be working alongside my wife and finishing the follow-up album for this, which is got flavours of drum and bass, got flavours of jazz, got flavours of funk, got flavours of this and that. You know, it's still unfolding. And while we're getting that together over this next year, we're also putting together a hip hop documentary, or a documentary about some great, just all the chaos surrounding the chaos, you know, years making that album, and all the artists that we worked with. So I'm really excited about that.